my guest this morning is Roz Thompson, because I have been promoting it all week long. And in my hopes that as many folks are listening as possible, because this session today is going to be informative and educational and fun. And so I met Roz a few years ago, prior to COVID. She actually was in a public speaking class that I was teaching at my church. And Roz was a great student, and she came to me and said, I can't. I said, yes, you can. You can speak publicly. It's not a problem. That's so she took the class, was one of the top students in the class, and Roz works for AAA. She's going to talk to you a little bit about that. And so she came to my school whenever I was at another building, and she talked to my students about safety and so forth and so on. And then I've been transferred since then to another school, but she called me up and said, you know what, I have this great initiative that we're doing for Ruby Bridges, Ruby Bridges Day on November 14th. Now, prior to that time, I didn't know they were doing the initiative. So Roz came and explained everything to me and said, sure, we want to participate. So then as we were talking, she interviewed me real quick at the school, took pictures, and we've been promoting it. But then I said, you know what, I think a wider audience needs to know about the whole Ruby Bridges, the initiative, and everything that's being done. So I said, you got to come on the show. Come on my show, and we're going to talk about it. So that's how Roz Thompson appeared today. I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about herself, and then we will continue on. As you just heard this song, she's one of the ones singing. Were you leading that?
No.
Who was leading it?
Brittany Dawson.
Oh, Brittany was leading it? Okay. All right. So we're going to play some more of your musical work as well. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Reading Circle microphones. None other than my friend Roz Thompson. Roz, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Mark. I am so honored to be here this morning, even at the crack of dawn.
Roz like, I can't believe you get up this early. I'm sorry. Like, yes, on a Saturday morning. Yes, Roz, I get up this early on a Saturday morning. Mm-hmm. So, all right, tell us a little bit about you, what you do, kind of introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure. Once again, my name is Roz Thompson, and I am a veteran employee, 22 years with the Automobile Association, also known as AAA. I am Senior Public Affairs Specialist in the Public Affairs Department, and we promote driver, pedestrian, and traffic safety.
All right. So as I said, and interestingly enough, I just got my new card in the mail yesterday. Matter of fact, whenever it came in, I saw the envelope, I thought about you.
That's the beauty about it. We're much more than roadside assistance, even though that is the heartbeat of the company. But I am proud that we are out in communities. We have our boots on the ground across our footprint as we promote driver, pedestrian, and traffic safety. But this initiative is just such a blessing for me, and you are one of the ones that I am grateful that is on board with this project.
And the project she's talking about, again, is one that I really didn't know a whole lot about until she came to me with it, and that was the Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. Mm-hmm. Now, it was interesting because immediately when Roz came to the school, I went around and started questioning my students to see how much they knew about Ruby Bridges. And to my pleasant surprise, and Roz's pleasant surprise too, because I put them on the spot, they were able to answer rudimentary or at least surface questions about who Ruby Bridges is and what her contribution was to even them being able to go to school as they do today.
Right.
So, okay, Roz, let's talk a little bit. How did you come across, or how did the Ruby Bridges Day initiative come to you?
Sure. Back in 2018, it was a student-led movement from a group of fifth grade patrollers in California that learned about Ruby's story. And thereafter, one of the questions were, why isn't there a day for this brave young lady? And they took their question to the State Legislature in California, and they wanted a day where they would be able to walk and promote this courageous young lady that basically changed education across the world.
Now, for those of you, if you're not familiar with the name Ruby Bridges, I guarantee you're familiar with the photos as well as the painting that Norman Rockwell or someone, one of them had done, I believe it was Norman Rockwell,
yes,
had done a photo of Ruby when she was being escorted into the school. Now, and this is where I said the boys had a cursory knowledge of who Ruby Bridges was, and they were able to say she was the first black girl that was able to go to this particular school that was an all-white school. And yes, you're absolutely right.
In New Orleans.
That's right. And so, and during that time frame, because we're going back into like the 50s.
Right.
During that time, and I went back over the story of what her family went through, and it was like, just to go to school.
Right.
So now, how did AAA get involved in that, and you now be the representative?
Well, because we have we're celebrating our 100th year with the AAA School Patrollers, because it was School Patrollers that initiated this in California. Not only did we say why not, we jumped on board immediately. And my teammate Diana, who is now Director of Public Affairs, brought it to our attention during the pandemic. And I was so proud that she thought it would be fitting for us to initiate this in schools. She has been working at the forefront of it down in Rhode Island and circulated it across our footprint. And last year, even though we were still under the pandemic, I had no problems bringing Ruby Bridges, her story, her videos, and what she did so that we are able to now proudly walk in schools. We have principals, African-American principals, African-American superintendents. Me as an African-American is able to go into schools and, teach and promote safety, all because of Ruby Bridges. So I was so proud that my teammate brought that, into the School Safety Patrol for AAA. How could we not? We're in schools every day, whether it be teen driver safety for elementary schools and even after school programs. I was just so proud that my teammate brought this to our attention last year. My mom told me about Ruby Bridges and why I was going to take my butt to school every day, why I was going to do the best that I could do, because somebody back in 1960, which was not so far ago, back in 1960, she had to be escorted by federal marshals. And then thereafter by local police, just so that she can go to school. They didn't want us in their classrooms. They took their students out of their schools, not just what she suffered, her family suffered. They lost their jobs. Even grandparents were kicked off plantations because of her just wanting to go to school. She was chosen, as well as some other students, to go and to start this integration. But, Ruby marched in there every day with these marshals, even though she was ridiculed, even though only one teacher wanted to even educate her or, be her teacher. And I read, I watched civil rights movements as it relates to that. And I think this is all stemming from Brown versus Board of Education back in 1954. Even though some schools said, okay, this is the law, New Orleans during that time said, no, we're not having it.
And this is the thing, because this was a child that all she wanted to do was go to school, and she wanted equity. She wanted to go to school like anybody else and be able to go wherever she wanted to go. Not to the point where it's, okay, because you're African American or black, you have to go to that school. If you're Caucasian, you have to go to that school. So the whole integration thing, as you just heard Roz say, about Brown versus Board of Education, it was not taken easily. It was not accepted. It was not readily accepted. It was like, no, we do not want to integrate. We do not want you in our schools, to the point, as she just said, for the first year or so, it might have been a little bit longer than that, one Caucasian teacher taught that one African-American student.
Right.
That was the only student she had. She stepped up to the plate. So let's not get twisted to think that there were no Caucasian brothers and sisters that did not help with the movement, because they did.
Right.
that one Caucasian teacher said, you know what, I'll teach her.
Right.
And she stepped up, and in that classroom, and see, this is where I said it was going to be educational and informational, because for me, as I started doing research about this morning, that's when I learned that it was this one teacher, Caucasian teacher, that said, I will teach her. And believe me, she caught some heck, too.
Right.
I'm being nice because I'm on the air when I said heck, but believe me, she caught some HE double hockey sticks as well for being the Caucasian teacher who taught this African-American child.
Right.
Now, I would have, because the actual day is November 14th, and I would have had this particular show next week, but I'm going to be out of town, so hence I will not be on the air next Saturday because I will be traveling. I will be out of town. So that's why I asked Roz to come today, because I still wanted folks to know prior to
That's right.
November 14th and not after. So I just pulled up, say, if you go to Google, that wonderful thing that was not around when Roz and I were kids, if you go to that wonderful thing and put in Ruby, maybe it was around. Roz is younger than me, so maybe it was around when she was a kid. I don't know. But if you go there and you put in Ruby Bridges, a lot will come up. So I just pulled in, I put in Google, and it says, in 1960, she walked past hateful protesters to become the first black child at Louisiana school, and was then taught alone for a year.
Right.
She discusses her fear, forbearance, and her fight for a better future. The year Ruby Bridges saw some newly discovered video footage of her 6-year-old self, because Ruby's still alive, by the way. Matter of fact, I'm going to reach out to them, see if I can get her to come on the show. She would come by phone, but I'm going to see if I can get her on. The footage was from 14 November 1960, a day that shaped the course of Bridges' life, and in no exaggeration to say, American history. Not that she was aware of it at the time. On that day, she became the first black child to attend an all-white primary school in Louisiana. Right. Now, like I said, if you've seen the picture of the little girl being walked into school, it's by Norman Rockwell. It's a Norman Rockwell painting of the little girl in between 4 marshals, and that's how she had to go to school every day. Now, you all know, because I share with you every week, that I'm an educator. I have kids that the only thing they got to do is get up and go to school, and they don't want to do that.
Okay.
This girl every day had to fight to go to school, and things were thrown at her. She was spit upon. She was ostracized. She was teased, all of that, and yet she still pressed on and went to school. Now, Roz, it was interesting what you just said about the school safety patrols, because you took me back. I remember being an elementary student at school number 15 in the 7th grade.
With your belt?
Yes. I wanted to be a junior patrol so bad, because we called them junior patrol back then. I wanted to be a junior patrol, and finally I got picked to be a junior patrol. Oh my God, I got the belt and the badge. At the end of the day, we would stand at different exits and so forth and so on. But I still have my certificate at home for that. I'm going to screenshot it to you.
I was going to say,
I'm going to screenshot that certificate to you, because I still have my certificate to this day for being a junior patrol when I was in 7th grade. And that was such an honor. So the fact that you're saying the kids, the junior patrol, the safety patrols were the ones who came up with the idea.
Right.
And you all acted on it.
Yes, we did.
That says a lot, too.
We acted on it, and because we work hand in hand with law enforcement, I also want to mention that federal marshals were, on board with, they denounced, the fact that Louisiana didn't want Ruby to go to school. I believe his name was Charles Burke, who was the federal marshal that was responsible for Ruby every day going to school. He stood up for what was right. He made sure that he protected her, and which is why now, the safety patrol, we launched this initiative with, we partner with community policing and such. They too will be participating on November 14th. Started with federal marshals, and then the local police were responsible thereafter, after the crowds dispersed and, they accepted the fact that this was what it was going to be. I was proud that law enforcement stepped up to protect this young lady, especially Charles Burke. So I just want to say, I absolutely hate racism. I just couldn't fathom I don't know what it's like to not be able to go to school with not being able to go to school. I don't know what it's like to be discriminated against to that form, to that, that way. All I know is that when I started going to school, my mom says, listen, you better be proud that you are able to go. And that's when she told me about Ruby Bridges. So, she told us the importance of education and why we are to get, do the best that we can do. And to just know that this young lady was, forbidden to go because of how she was born. She was born brown. We can't help that. And Marc Medley, for the second time this morning, racism is ugly. Racism is taught. And the mere fact that, AAA is at the forefront of diversity, equity, and inclusion, sticking up for civil rights, and promoting this young lady. We're in schools every day, to some realm. I know I'm in high schools just about every day, and I wouldn't be able to go into high schools if it wasn't for this young lady. Because of what she did and who she was, you are able to be principal. I have a good sister friend, Dr. Reels, who is an African-American first superintendent, and we wouldn't be able to have our professions if it wasn't for this young lady. So I'm wearing purple today. I started early, and I have on a purple dress because that was her favorite color. And I believe all next week I'll wear something purple, in remembrance leading up to Ruby Bridges Day.
Now, it's interesting, again, that Roz would say that, and she's absolutely right. It was Charles Burks. I'm going to tell you again, the whole racism thing, because everybody was not racist, everybody is not racist, because in the civil rights movement and in all the movements, you had mixed races in there.
That's right.
But the folks, going back to what I read to you this morning from Iyanla Vanzant, you got to know what you know and you got to know what you believe. Mm-hmm. So for those white folks who did not believe in being evil or treating somebody who did not look like them or act like them a different way, they joined, and many of them got killed as well.
Yes.
If you look at the March on Washington, you will see white folks in that crowd. All right, so it's not a matter of bashing white folks. That's not the issue.
No,
the
it's
issue
not.
is they helped those that believed and helped, and she just said Charles Burke was one. The teacher was, I'm looking at this site now as we're talking, her teacher was Barbara Henry. Mm-hmm. Barbara Henry was the teacher who was white. Charles Burks was one of the federal marshals who was white. Mm-hmm. So there was actually white folks who had to protect this black child.
Absolutely.
And as Roz just said, if it was not for folks like Ruby Bridges who had the courage that in spite of the possibility of being killed, because Ruby could have been killed.
They already lost their jobs.
Right, her parents lost her. That's right. And Ruby and her parents, they could have literally during that time frame been killed. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was nothing at that time from them taking her father and hanging him from the tallest tree somewhere or whatever. Because when folks wanted to send messages, they sent them. If you know anything about our history, when messages wanted to be sent, they had no problem with burning crosses and burning houses and hanging folks from trees and all that. So thank God that did not happen, but they did send it another way. They lost jobs.
But just because they didn't want us to be educated.
Correct.
They didn't want us to learn. I just cannot understand what was the matter with us being equal.
And it's still the matter. This is 2022, almost 2023, and there are some folks out there who are trying to roll the clock back to that. Right. That's going back to voting. That's why you got to get out there on Tuesday and make sure you vote, because there are some folks that would have no problem with winding the clock back.
Right.
None at all, and they're doing everything they can to wind it back, whether you realize it or not. So again, if you go back on Google and you put in Ruby Bridges, matter of fact, it's interesting, I heard Roz say about she's wearing purple. I just received my t-shirt yesterday, because if you donate a certain amount to the Ruby Bridges Foundation, you get a t-shirt that comes with it. So again, I really... And it sounds bad when I say I had not given Ruby Bridges a thought until Roz came and told the initiative to me. But once she did, and I knew of Ruby Bridges, because, I mean, that painting just went worldwide. The Rockwell painting is worldwide. There's nowhere you can go in Black history that painting does not come up. Matter of fact, that painting is hanging in many schools and offices. I may get a copy of it to hang in my office myself to make sure I have that one. But once I started going back and refreshing my memory about Ruby Bridges, I actually went to that wonderful thing called Google, and I put in that, and I went on her foundation, and I made a donation, and because I did, I wound up getting the purple t-shirt. For those of you who follow me on Facebook, you would have seen it because I posted it last night. I got it in the mail yesterday. Haven't worn it yet, but I will wear it on that morning of the march. If you don't know who you're listening to, this is your host, Marc Medley. This is the Reading Circle. My guest this morning is Roz Thompson, and we are talking about Ruby Bridges.
Yes.
And we have a walk coming up on November the 14th. It's a Monday that is commemorating Ruby Bridges' walk to school. So it is called Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day.
And I'm so proud that AAA has taken this on. Just so proud that they would want to commemorate the bravery over 60 years ago of one fifth grader that stood up and stood out and was courageous enough that she wanted the education and she got it by any means necessary, even though it meant her being ridiculed, even though it meant her, a family suffering. Every day she went, as I understand it, she didn't miss one day. So I am able to be educated. We have other educators, African Americans, that because of her, once again, are able to be teachers, be principals, walk into schools, send our children to schools with Hispanic, Caucasian. We can go to any school we'd like to go to because of this little girl who is now still alive and has the Ruby Bridges Foundation. 22 years with AAA, knowing that they are at the forefront of this because we are in schools almost every day, safety patrols, working alongside of local and community policing. I'm just so proud of this. And thank you. Thankful again for AAA starting this initiative, and that my boots are on the ground in schools, asking schools if they would participate. We've even asked our coworkers if they would just do something as simple as wear purple to commemorate this young lady, and we hope you do too. If you got schools in the community, reach out to them and let them know about the Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. It is on November 14th, any time of the day that you'd like to walk. You can even go into the school playground. A banner would be supplied to you, which is purple, and it would just commemorate the fact that we are able to come together. We are able to denounce racism and celebrate and commemorate what she did.
Now, I know there's some educators listening. Again, November 14th is Ruby Bridges Day. Have your folks wear purple. I am going to have my T-shirt on that day. As a matter of fact, if you go to rubybridges.foundation, go there. That's her foundation. You'll learn more about it. But she says on there, my message, this is a quote, my message is really that racism has no place in the hearts and minds of our children. Right. Ruby Bridges, quote unquote. Now, this is the thing, and Roz said it earlier. Racism always has been and always will be taught. I'm going to give you an example, and this is the one I give all the time. If you put a bunch of babies in the middle of the floor, every last one of them different, every last baby you put in the circle different, and you put a ball in the middle of that circle, all of them are going to go and play with that ball.
That's right.
They don't care if they're dark, light. They don't care if they're heavy set. They don't care if they're thin. They don't care. They don't care if they have an Asian look or a Spanish look or a black look or a white look or this look. They don't care about that. Babies, if you put them in the middle of the floor and you put a couple toys in the middle of them, they're all going to want to go for that toy. And they could care less about the color of kids that's surrounding them. Right. They don't start caring until they start hearing conversations around the dinner table. That's right. Until they start hearing conversations around the dinner table, that's whenever they start caring, because what they're hearing is that that's bad. Don't hang around them because that's bad. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who is my hero, one of his best friends whenever he was little was a little white boy. And they were friends until at that white table, they started saying, you can't hang with Martin anymore. And both of the boys, Martin and his friends, were wondering why. Why can't we be together? Why can't we play together? Wow. And it all was from the conversations that were at the dinner table in terms of their dark skin, you can't be with them, so forth and so on. I remember distinctly as a child being in a store with a little white girl asking her mom, Mommy, are they dirty? And in her mind, because she was a little girl, she didn't know any different. She thought the fact that my skin was dark was dirt. Right. And since I'm a wordsmith, that could be taken a couple of different ways. You know, in other words, are they filthy?
And that dark is ugly.
Yes. And so when we start doing things like this in terms of talking, first off, truth needs to be told. Right. Folks need to be face front told that this is how it starts. And that's why, as educators, we have that ability to do it, and especially in a school like mine. So when Roz came to me, I said, oh, Roz, that's a no-brainer. When she called me up on the phone and said, AAA is doing this initiative with Ruby Bridges, would you like to be a part of it? And as soon as she said it, I said, "Oh, I'm in." I'm in. And then when I told her, I said, well, because I said, well, what's the detail? She says, well, schools march around the school, either march around the block or whatever. I said, oh, really? I said, well, my school is right around the block from City Hall. She was like, what? I said, my school is right around. When we walk around the block, we are going to be face front, dead center in front of City Hall.
Let's do it.
I thought Roz was going to lose her mind.
Yes.
She's like, what? City Hall? Yes. She said, we are going to stop right there in front of City Hall with our banner.
That's it.
We're going to stop right there. We're going to pause with our banner right in front of City Hall. I was like, great. So she said she was going to adopt our school because I think the various coworkers or whoever is adopting different schools or community members adopting a different school.
Or just sending the banner so that they can do it, take some photos, and then we'll be able to show the world that on this day we are remembering a young lady that changed the school system, that changed the world just because of who she was and what she did. I just want to go back a little bit and talk about how I contacted you, and I had a list of schools that I wanted to participate, and I spent almost at least 5 hours emailing and calling and conversing about November 14th. And just about everyone that I spoke to not only was interested, but just wanted to hear. And they, like you, were on, Google, and, they were, Roz, if not this year, I got to get, permission and such, because, we want to be in protocol. But just the fact that we're talking about her, just the fact that I was able to go in your school and hear from the elementary students that knew a little bit about her, and we were able to add on to it. Okay, so you know about her. Who is she and what did she do? And then the education that's going to come from this, they too are going to remember so that they can tell their children. And that's what this is about. Almost 60 years ago, we were not allowed to be in schools.
And see, when people, especially kids, and age is relative, if a 10-year-old hears 60 years ago, that sounds like forever. If you were around during that time frame, it's not forever. But 60 years is not that long ago.
No,
and that's one of the messages that when I'm talking to my students, I have to help them understand that it was not that long ago. I remember, in fact, we were doing this lesson, and I had brought my yearbook in, and the kids looked at the year and everything. They said, wow, you're a dinosaur. And so it was like, yeah, but one day you're going to be a dinosaur too. But the fact of the matter is, when we start talking 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago, that's not a long time in the grand scheme of things. So one of the messages is our kids today take for granted that things were always the way they are now. And the message we try to get across is, no, things weren't. You couldn't just walk up in any school you wanted to and go. Your parents couldn't just plunk you into this school or that school and go. And so we actually showed them pictures of the Negro-only fountain and the white-only fountain. We actually had that. Matter of fact, the movie Till is out now. And what I want to do is I want to give them, if I don't take them to the theater to see it, then once it starts streaming, they will definitely see it. One way or the other, my students are going to see Till as well, because there were so many people who contributed to where we are now and what we're able to do now. And as I just said, many, not even just kids, many people in general take for granted that it was always the way it is now, and it is not. And I'm on the Ruby Bridges Foundation site, and it says Ruby Bridges walks, and Roz called it exactly as it is because she's a part of AAA. It says, why isn't there a day named after Ruby Bridges? The student was Maddie, Maddie P. The initiative started with a question from a group of AAA School Safety Patrollers. Yes, I'm a former patroller. Yes. From Martin Elementary in South San Francisco. Nearly 60 years later, as they were hearing Ruby's story for the first time. See, that's sad, too, because there's so many folks who contributed that we never hear their stories. So these students were hearing it for the first time and learning about her courage and bravery. They thought there should be a day to commemorate the movement she started. These students took their idea to the state legislature, just like Roz told you, straight up. Today, about Ruby Bridges Walk to School is recognized by the state of California November 14th each year. Like Ruby, they led the way and set an example. All right. So that, going back to what you were saying about the kids with student voice, the fact that you all took them up on that because we're big on student voice. In other words, a lot of times people say, they're just kids, we don't have to listen to them. Wrong. We need to listen to Ruby. One of the things we emphasized was Ruby was only 6. You can be an activist and an advocate. You don't have to be old to be an activist and an advocate.
And that's what the 5th graders did back in California. You know, these safety patrollers heard the story and they took action. And the Walk to School Day is a call to action. So they took their questions all the way to the state legislature. And because of what they did, it started a movement once again 60 years ago. So all it takes is a conversation and action. And that's what AAA did. They took action. One AAA Safety Patrol office did it. And so now we are going nationwide with this. And that's why I'm just so proud of my teammate that made sure that we were able to come on board with this as well. Listen, my boots are on the ground. I am just proud of the schools that will be participating. And for those that, couldn't, jump on board this year, there's always going to be, it's not just a year thing. And that is why I'm just grateful that this is not February. We're not doing Black History Month. This is an everyday call to action. We can educate about this young lady any day of the year. It's just that November 14th is designated for her walk. But every day we should be promoting equality. Every day we should, denounce racism, and we should stand up for what is right every day of the year. So once again, this is not February. Our voices are heard from every day of the week, and for that I am proud. Racism is a grown-up disease. So let's stop using kids to spread it. And that is one of her quotes as well.
Absolutely. So if you're just joining us, if you have a question for Roz, the number is 973-720-2738. You'll have a chance to ask it. I'll get you on the air and she can answer it. So again, if you have a question about Ruby Bridges or the Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day or what we're doing here with Roz Groups, her chapter or her office of AAA that's sponsoring our area, give us a call, 973-720-2738. And you can ask Roz the question. Again, if you just joined us, I hope you've been with me since 6, but certainly I hope you've been with me since 7, because Roz and I started talking at that point, and I'm going to shift gears just a tiny bit because the focus really is the Ruby Bridges Day. And she said something that was critical just now. I understand we commemorate African American contributions, or Black History Month, or Negro History, or whatever you want to call it, in February. But the truth of the matter is, I heard somebody the other day say something that I thought was very interesting, because you know how we say 24/7? Well, the truth of the matter is it's 25/8.
Yeah.
It's 25 hours, 8 days a week. In other words, it never, ever goes away. Black history never, ever goes away. As a matter of fact, what I promote is everybody ought to be proud of their history and the contributions they've made to the country. No one group did it all. Unfortunately, the story that's always told is one group did everything and nobody else did anything. That's where we keep running into this issue, and that's where the whole racism things come through, because you get folks thinking they're better than other folks. You get the folks thinking, well, because my skin is white or because I'm Caucasian, I'm better than you because you're Black or you're Spanish or you're Asian or you're this or you're that or you're this, that, and the other. That's where the issues come in, when the truth of the matter is, as Jesse Jackson said years ago, it's the different patches in the quilt that make the quilt beautiful. It's the different colors and the different patches on the quilt that makes the quilt beautiful. It's not all one color or one patch on the quilt. And see, that's where we need to get to, that everybody's contributions matter. When we start thinking in terms of civil rights movement, the only names that come up are Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. And I told you, I'm probably Martin Luther King's biggest fan. But there were more who contributed to the civil rights movement than just him. You have the Ruby Bridges. You have the Ella Bakers. You have folks whose name really don't get told too much. And that's why the importance of this interview this morning is for those of you in the listening audience and those of you who will be listening to the YouTube archive, you need to spread the word. And especially those of you who are principals and teachers who are listening in on November 14th, wear purple. All right, I'm going to have, since I have an official T-shirt from the Ruby Bridges Foundation, I'm going to be sure on that Monday the 14th that I wear that as a part of my attire. I think our walk is going to be, did we say 10 o'clock that morning?
10 o'clock
so
that
10,
morning.
10 o'clock on the 14th, God willing. We're going to be marching around the block, and we're going to make sure we stop and take pictures in front of City Hall. I don't know if I can get the mayor to jump out there whenever we get out there, not if he's around, but knowing him, he might. He might. He loves a photo op, so he might jump out as it's right in front of his office, so he may very well. But we're going to be walking around the block on that 14th to commemorate a very brave girl. Now, for the men out there, see, because, there's always the gender thing that goes on, too. This was a little girl. That wasn't a little boy.
Right.
This was a little girl.
Right.
All right. That was leading the way for us to be able, particularly in that particular state in Louisiana, to go to school. Just be able to go to school. And as I said, I heard you mention something about she didn't miss a day.
Never missed a day.
This is the thing. We use pretty much 180 as the number of school days, even though it's a little bit more. But we use 180. So we calculate what would be considered chronically absent. That if you miss 2 days a month, that's about 20 days, which is a little over 10%. You've missed 10% of your education. And because people don't give it a thought. And I already have kids that's considered chronically absent already. Kids are already blown past the 20 days already. This is only November. And yet I have kids who've already missed 20 days of school. And yet you're saying this young lady did not miss not one day.
Never missed a day. Well, that's how my mom raised us. You had to be almost dying in order to miss school. I mean, like literally almost dying. And I understand now. She said, if you'll go to school every day, you'll go to work every day. And because somebody fought hard, the civil rights movement was just that, a movement, so that we can accomplish. And the mere fact that you're saying that there's some students that have already missed 20 days, absolutely unacceptable. And parents, we got to do better. We got to do better.
No, you're absolutely, because my parents were just like yours. There was no such thing as staying home from school. Like you said, you had to be on like deathbed. You're right. You had to be on deathbed to stay from school. And it's so interesting that what you just said about in terms of the development of habits, because that's another one of my messages every day, that what you're doing now, if we don't get you in the correct habits, you're going to be doing these bad habits as an adult. Mm-hmm. So you're right. A kid that's not coming to school now is a grown-up that's not going to be going to work.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And your mom was right on point. Like the habits you start now as a youngster,
it's the habits.
If you don't get into good habits, because it works both ways. The good habits you have as a youngster, you'll carry over to being an adult. But the bad habits you have as a youngster, you will carry over as well.
Right.
And I'm constantly challenging my students, you need to understand some of these bad habits I'm seeing out of you can get you killed. Mm-hmm. If you do this as an adult, it's going to get you killed. And they know. Then they come to my office. I said, all right, you're talking to me as principal now, and I do love and care about you. You're going to stand up in front of a judge who don't.
Mm-hmm. My.
You're going to stand up in front of a judge and say, look, did you do what this book said? And this is the amount of time I'm supposed to give you. Or even worse yet, you out on the street, and the officer says, stop running, and you keep running. The officer feel like, you know what, I need to gun you down because you resisted arrest. You disobeyed orders, this, that, and the other. So we're constantly trying to help them understand habits. And one of them is coming to school. Every day. Somebody's the least little thing. Okay, he can stay home today. No, he can't.
Right.
Put his butt in school.
That's right. That's the way my mom was, and I'm better. I am at my best because of it. Those standards that she taught me back then is why and how I am able to have a high function and an energy today.
I know that's right. Now, interesting. Now, listening audience, you're listening to Roz. You're listening to Roz speak. Now, this is one that was in my public speaking class that said she would not speak publicly. I said, oh, yes, she will. Roz was speaking publicly before she got to my class. It was just, my class was a refresher for her. But she now is a public speaker. She's all over the place, talking all over the place.
Yeah, I took that course, right before the pandemic because I wanted to better myself. And here we go with education. You can always do something to better yourself. But I met you in that course, and you were kind enough to make sure that we had the tools that we needed for that course. And I know today when I stand up and say, good morning or good afternoon, everyone, my name is Roz Thompson with AAA Northeast. I attribute that to you and to the free course that I was able to take back at St. Luke's, Freedom School. So speaking of that, school is free for most students.
That's right.
Public school is free. And there is no reason why, we can't not just send our kids to school every day, but have that conversation with students about Ruby Bridges. It doesn't have to take a teacher to talk about that. My mom lived in the civil rights era. She, too, was, one that, was not allowed to go to schools, to go to integrated schools. She went to school with only African Americans in a little house back in Greenville, North Carolina. And when I hear stories of Mom, we used to sit fire chat, legs crossed, and listen to the stories of how she got over, how they made it over. So when she told me about, Ruby Bridges and how, she was the hero that started integration, that's when she told me the story of how she was not able to go to school with Caucasian. So when I say that this was not so long ago, 60 years ago, like Mark said, is a long time ago for a student. But how many parents lived it?
Absolutely. I personally, during the 60s, I was a young child. I was here on the planet, and there were things that we did that I didn't know, especially since you're in AAA. I didn't know that we did those. I thought that's how everybody traveled. Case in point, my dad was from Virginia. My mom's from North Carolina. And so in the summertime, we would drive down 95, turnpike, so forth and so on, to get to where we needed to get to. I thought everyone traveled with food and sodas in their car and all this, that, and the other. I didn't know till I was grown that we did that because we couldn't stop at restaurants along the highway. Mm-hmm. I did not. I thought everybody wrapped up I thought everybody froze their sodas the night before and wrapped them up in foil and had their chicken and food and everything in a keep warm bag. I thought everybody, that's how folks travel, not realizing, no, we were doing that because we couldn't stop at restaurants. And so this was during the 60s time frame wherein if you were African American, if you were black, if you were a Negro,
you had to go in the back door.
Exactly, if you got in the door at all. And so I didn't know that till I was grown. So to Roz's point, parents, those of you who lived that or whose parents or grandparents were in that era, we need to educate our children. Right. And again, I'm very clear about this. This is not white bashing. This is not being anti-white. No, this is not about that. No. But it is about educating and helping folks understand how we as human beings need to interact with each other regardless of what your skin color is. Because Roz said it earlier, we have absolutely nothing to do with the color of skin we are.
Nothing.
We have nothing to do with that. We cannot help that. We can't do anything with that. We are who we are. That does not make anyone any less of an individual or a human being because of the color of their skin, their ethnicity, their ancestry, or their background.
I hate racism.
So
and
do
I always say that. I just hate it. Those parents literally snatched their kids out of school because they didn't want their son or daughter to be in the same class or the same school just because she was black. I just cannot understand why someone would hate someone just because of how they were born. Just because of they were African American, Jewish, or whatever their denomination is, Chinese, Asian, Mediterranean. Hate is hate.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I'm like you. First off, I abhor hate. Mm-hmm. And secondly, I abhor the racism because you don't have one without the other. Right. Because I said earlier, look in the history of the civil rights movement. Mm-hmm. There were white folks who were killed because they believed what we're talking about right now, that people are people, humans are human. We all bleed red. Regardless of the color of your skin, we still, if you're cut, your blood is going to bleed red. Right. All right? And that does not matter who you are. At the end of the day, if you get hurt or if you're cut, your blood bleeds the same color.
Right. And the mere fact that AAA, denounces racism and hate and are taking on this initiative so that we can bring awareness of, first of all, our 100 years with the Safety Patrol, but that it was Safety Patrollers back in California, fifth graders, little kids, that took this stance and says, let's go to the top. Who can we talk to so that this young lady has a day?
And that's representative and symbolic because, again, it was kids who were now saying we need to have a day for a kid who changed history.
That's right.
And you had folks, legislators and companies such as yours that listened and took action on it. So that's why we have it. So again, for my educating friends out there, my educator friends, my principal friends who are listening, my teacher friends who are listening, on the 14th,
please
be sure you wear some purple. And if somebody asks about it, or matter of fact, don't even wait for them to ask. Just let them know. You know why I'm wearing this purple today? Because it is Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day, November the 14th. And that's the actual day that this started. That's why it's November 14th, because that was the day whenever she actually walked in with those federal agents and those police officers. And I mean, think about that. You had to be, I'm the first show of the morning here, and I know, like, in order for me to get in the building, I'm escorted in by the police. But think about now, you have to be escorted by 4 federal agents or police officers or the National Guard or whomever, just for you. And once you got in there, no one would sit in class with you. You had to now go to a class with a teacher by yourself. But you know what? Through it all, and it's interesting because your song said everything was going to be all right.
Yes, that's what it said.
I know that everything was going to be all right. I know that's right. And I'm getting ready to shift gears into that now. Let's talk a little bit about, because I told you Roz is a Renaissance woman. She's like, every time, because like I see her on social media, she sees me on social media, and I know some of the folks, and when she talked about Dr. Reels just now, I know some of the folks that's in the singing group. So let's talk a little bit about the group. What's the name of the group?
We are the group Anointed Friends, and actually we are going on our 4th year as a singing group. What most sticks out about Anointed Friends is that during the pandemic, we were able to still keep going. We were able to still find a way to stay connected because we knew we needed each other. These girls are not just in the singing group. These are my sister friends, and I am proud to call them that. We hold each other accountable. We love God. We are, proud to share the ministry of music. And once again, we didn't stop just because of there was this worldwide pandemic. Actually, we came together more. How so? We stayed connected. We were on lives together, and we were able to, once things start opening up, really have a call to action to go out and, spread the message via music. So you have 3 professionals and the singing superintendent.
What do you call it, the singing superintendent?
Because she is the superintendent.
And she is. And matter of fact, there are like 3 to 4 people, and Roz and I were talking about this the other day when she was at my school. There are 3 to 4 people that years ago, and I'm talking like 20 plus years ago, started calling me Dr. Medley. And Taisha Reels, Dr. Reels, Superintendent Reels, was one of them. There were 3 people. There was Dr. Lassiter, Randy Lassiter, Dr. Reels, my good friend Dr. Io Sakai. Those 3 people were calling before they got their doctorates, because all 3 of us at that point, nobody had doctors. They were calling me doctor before they got theirs. Taisha was one of them. Taisha I actually hired as a teacher when I was at school 27. Matter of fact, I was just about to get transferred. The document to hire her was the last thing I did at school 27 before I got transferred. And we had a conversation, and she's another one who always tell me, Dr. Medley, you're going to get your doctor, you're going to get your doctor. Io was that way, Randy was that way. So finally, it is now beginning to come to pass, as I am going to start the doctorate degree, God willing, in July. So they were putting that into the universe 20, 30 years ago, even before then, and all of them have gone on to get their doctorate. So I guess I'm playing catch up with them now. But so you have Taisha, who's the superintendent of a school. You have Roz, who's the public relations person for AAA. And you have how many other girls are in the group? How many other ladies?
We have two other, Brittany Dawson, who is a owner-proprietor of her own hair salon, and Tiffany Songbird is a customer service manager. So
right.
that's what I mean by three professionals and the doctor, singing superintendent.
So now we played "Be All Right." Do you have other songs that's out there as well?
We sure do. Dr. Reels wrote her own song, "Jesus, He Will Fix It." She wrote that, and I think it was released in I think it was July of 2021, but she wrote that on the side of the road. We were waiting.
I know, that's right.
Yeah, on the side of the road, she pulled over and said that God gave this song to her. We were waiting for someone to write a song for her, and she said that God gave her the words and the lyrics and the melody to the song. And not only did he give it to her, it ended up being #1 on the internet BDS charts.
Wow. So now how do I get to play that? Is that on
It's
YouTube,
on YouTube
as well?
You can look up "Jesus, He Will Fix It" by Anointed Friends.
He Will Fix It
Mm-hmm.
by Anointed Friends. He Will Fix It.
Mm-hmm.
And she wrote that on the side of the road.
She wrote that on the side. She pulled over. She was safe. And, when God is talking to you,
Well, this is true.
you have to, listen to what he is saying. Now, for me, I believe God speaks to me at night.
Okay.
I believe that, if I have to make a bathroom trip or
Right.
so, that's when he is, tapping on my heart and wants me to pay attention. Sometimes I write it down. And sometimes I just say, I hope that he can, I hope I can remember what he is saying. Because, if you wake up in the middle of the night and he's talking to you, you want to hope to remember it. But for her, he talked to her on the side of the road, and here we have it. Jesus, he will fix it.
Well, I tell you what, one of the things I love about the show, especially when folks come in live, is they can be very interactive. And so that's exactly what we're doing this morning. I'm getting ready to play the exact song that Roz was just talking about. We're going to get that going. I tell you, I love those "well I know." She breaks down that "well I know." I know that's right. Oh, go ahead, choir. I know that's right. Every time she break into that, well, I know.
It's the drive for me.
I know that's right.
It's the drive for me. I love some good gospel music. It's encouraging. It's uplifting.
Yes, it is.
And I just, on the way here, I was, playing my gospel music, and it just, starts your day. It just makes you feel good.
It should. Now, I'll tell you what, let's be clear, because God was with the Ruby Bridges. You can make, you can say what you want to say. God was with the civil rights movement. I mean, so that movement, all of that, the black church was all up in that.
Yes, they were.
And so no question in terms of, so now who was leading that one?
That's Dr. Taisha Reynolds.
So that was Taisha. That was all right. Now
she wrote it.
I'm going to add you all to our Saturday morning playlist.
Come on, let's do it.
I'm going to add you all to the list. I'll start playing, and folks will know it's the Anointed Friends.
That's it.
That's the name of it, the Anointed Friends. And if you go to YouTube,
if you go to YouTube, if you go to Facebook, if you go to just our website, all we ask is that you just like and start following us. We are the group Anointed Friends. We believe that God chose us for this assignment, and that is
that's right. Let's see again, for those of you Bible scholars out there, or for those of you who may not, if you know the story of whenever Jesus was passing out talents. He gave 1, 5, 1, 10, so forth and so on. Mm-hmm. The one that had 10, they actually multiplied. They doubled theirs. The one that had 5 doubled his, but the one got 1 got an attitude because he only got 1 or got scared. One of them. I'm not sure if it was an attitude or scared, but either way, he buried his 1. And when Jesus came back through, he took that 1 back from him and gave it to the one who had the 10. So when you are gifted with more than one gift, use them all. I'm saying all that to say, you heard us talking about Roz working for AAA. You heard us talking about Roz singing in the group Anointed Friends. She's done many other things as well. She's using her gifts.
Yes.
She's using the gifts God has given her in multiple and different ways. For those of you who only have one and do one thing, I am not mad at you. Do that one thing well. But for those of us who can do more than one, who've been given the 5 or the 10, use them before you lose them.
Amen. That's right. That's right.
God, just as the Lord giveth, the Lord can taketh away.
Right. And I'm grateful for the energy that he gives, too. I get a good night's rest, and I am ready for the day as early as, for me, it's 5:30. I know for you on Saturday morning.
Saturday morning's only 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
But the rest of the week is 6.
Yeah, well, every day for me is at 5:30, and I want to be my best. I want to do my best. When I show up at the schools or for my assignment, whether it be keynote speaker somewhere or just speaking to high schoolers, I want to give my best, which is why I celebrated 22 years with AAA just the other night at the North Jersey Country Club. I am grateful that they took us all out and said, listen, we are grateful that you are on board with us. Who wouldn't want to work for a company such as that, that celebrates diversity, equity, and inclusion, making sure that, we are honoring young ladies such as Ruby Bridges, and then it doesn't just stop for me at 5, 6 o'clock. The gospel group Anointed Friends is a stress reliever for me as well. Those sisters, I tell you, singing in the middle of those sisters just really, really makes my heart happy, and it is a stress releaser for me. But I am also active in the community. We have the NAACP, in which I am a proud board executive there, membership chair. I don't just talk the talk. I'm walking the walk as well.
I know that. I just told you, either you use it or lose it.
That's right.
So if God have given you these gifts, use them before he decides to take them away and give them to somebody else. So I'll tell you what, you get last shout outs in terms of anybody you want to shout out. I'm going to shut the mic off because we've come down to the end of our interview. And so wonderful time. Make sure, for those of you out there, Candace and some of my other principal friends out there, November the 14th is Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. Wear purple.
And if you can't wear purple, if you can't walk, just wear purple. find something purple and take a picture and say, we support you, Ruby Bridges, because it's because of her that we're able to be in these schools. I'm able to walk in the front door of schools every day because of what she did and who she was. So because of that, if you can't walk or you weren't able to sign up, you still have time to sign up. We'll send you a banner, and you don't even have to walk. You can go in the parking lot or the playground of your school and just stand and say, we support Ruby Bridges, or just wear purple. So educators, after school programs, it doesn't have to be any time of the day. You can start as early as 8, or you can wait till after school. And if you have an after school program, please, I want to see you. We want to see you. Text, use the hashtag Ruby Bridges and walk to school day. Hashtag Ruby Bridges walks to school day. I'm going to be with Marc Medley, and I am going to proudly have on my purple, hold that banner on the end of, on one of the ends, and stand proud for who she was and what she did.
I know that's right. And in terms of she's right, as a matter of fact, I got to go back now on my Facebook page, and if they allow me to edit the post and put the hashtag on there. Hashtag Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day, all connected, no spaces. Hashtag, well, you know how hashtags work. Hashtag Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. Put that on your post. If you take pictures, I got to go back now and see if I can edit some of those, because I've taken some pictures. And even whenever I send out the interview on YouTube, I'm going to put that hashtag on there to make sure.
And hashtag AAA too.
That's right. There you go.
Please,
there you go. Hashtag AAA. So is it hashtag AAA?
AAA,
okay.
AAA Northeast.
Oh, so hashtag AAA Northeast. Okay,
that is correct.
And so then I'll make sure I hashtag both of those. I'm gonna do the Ruby Bridges hashtag and your AAA
and once
Northeast.
Again, shout out
hashtag.
to AAA Northeast for taking this on, trusting me to go out in communities. Not just me, we have a host of teammates that are on board with this. We got my teammate Shani Jarvis that's in charge of the School Safety Patrol here in New Jersey. She's making sure that you have supplies. She's making sure that if you need anything that would support your school, badges and safety patrol belts.
Does it matter what part of the country they're in?
Well, we are for Northeast New Jersey, okay. Bergen, Passaic, Hudson, Essex, Morris, and Union.
What I mean is, this is a nationwide
initiative.
It's a
nationwide
initiative. How would a principal in another state get a banner?
Well, they can go to the Ruby Bridges initiative of the Ruby Bridges Walks to School Day, and they would be able to get a banner there. But if you are in the 6 counties here, right, you can just go to AAA.com/Ruby Bridges.
And so you bringing a banner to me on that day?
I'm bringing it with me so that I'm so looking forward to this, Mark. I promise you, I'm so looking forward to it. I got up early this morning on a Saturday.
I know that's right.
So that we can speak about this.
One of my faithful listeners, Wardell, he tells me all the time, you're the only one I'll get up at 6 o'clock on a Saturday morning for. And so you join him now in getting up this early. But I am so glad you did. If there's any particular, who's your PR person or your manager or whoever came up with it, who was that person? If you want to shout her out.
Diana Gugliotti. Thank you so much, Diana, for last year. She started this initiative here. We have a club hub in which, she, gave a description of who Ruby was and how the safety patrol got involved in California. And even now, her boots are on the ground, sleeves are rolled up. She's doing some work with the Norman Rockwell Museum, in which soon we would hope to have virtual visits to this museum. And I just absolutely, just so love and respect and adore the fact that she took this on, brought this, initiative to AAA. And so thank you, Diana. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Dr. Moses McKenzie from School 20 here in Patterson, who too, he's doing all of these things in addition to walking. Oh my God, I can't wait to see. He says, no, Roz, I can't tell you. I got to show you what we will be doing. So I also wanted to shout out Dr. Moses McKenzie, who, has, taking on this initiative and is going to have a reading and videos and a whole day to educate his entire school over at School 20. So thank you, Dr. McKenzie. And most of all, thank you for this interview, for letting me record all the greatness that you have over at your school. This is an all-boys school. So
Correct.
the mere fact, I want you to talk about your school and, go ahead.
No, and interestingly enough, the listening audience, they almost get like a rundown of my week in my schools just about each week at some point during the show. But to Roz's point, yes, it is an all-male leadership school, and we still keep getting confused with being an alternative school or a school for bad boys. No, that is not what the Young Men's Leadership Academy is about. Now, do the boys have their little challenges? Yes, they do. It's like anybody else, any other human being.
Mm-hmm.
But the intent of the school is to develop leaders. And the school is predominantly African American and Hispanic. And again, that's the marginalized groups, because the dominant group in many instances try to say nobody else contributed anything to the world other than us. And we debunk that myth. We had the opportunity to debunk that, because you have places around the country who are trying to do away with black history even being taught.
Right.
I mean, we get into critical race theory and all that big fight that's going on there. The truth is the truth is the truth is the truth is the truth. And so the reason that all this fight is going on for whether critical race theory or black history or African history or Asian history or Spanish history or whatever, they don't want the truth out there, because the truth of the matter is everyone contributed and not just one group.
Right.
So they want to perpetuate that only one group contributed to the building of the country and the world, when that's just not true.
Mm-hmm.
So my school gets an opportunity to do a lot of work in that area that I might not get a chance to do in a larger school or in a multi-gender school. I get a chance to do that with the boys. And, there's a lot of work in self-esteem. Mm-hmm. Stand tall, stand proud. Do not allow anyone to tell you were less than who you are because of the color of your skin or your ethnic background.
That's it. And that's why we celebrate this, because now they want to step in. They want to take part. And it started with some fifth graders back in California. Not African American, all ethnicities took part in this. And so that's what makes me proud.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go back to everything going to be all right. I'm going to go back to that as we close out. Be all right. Yes. And then I'm going to walk Roz back out to the lounge, or if you want to hang out, because I'll be here till 9 o'clock. And, maybe we can do breakfast or something afterwards, depending on what your schedule is. But if you want to hang out in the lounge, you want to stay here for the rest of the show, I'll be putting on the gospel music. So you got that. But be all right. Thank you so much for rising.